You have questions? America's #1 business coach has answers. It's your Broda from Minnesota. Here's another edition of Ask Clay Anything on the Thrive Time Business Coach Radio Show.
Yes, and Wes. Welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. My name is Clay Clark. That's 1 cowbell for you, 2 cowbells for you again, 3 cowbells. Z, no one gets 3 cowbells, but Wes Carter gets 3 cowbell hits, and then this thing.
He gets the cowbell shuffle. Is that the shuffle?
Did we mute Wes? Is that kind of the passive-aggressive behavior that we're going to tolerate on this show? Are you there, Wes?
I'm here.
Oh, wow. See, I muted him, Z.
Why would you mute him? Just passive
It
aggressive.
was a passive-aggressive, and I want to level the playing field.
Sure.
At any moment, like check this out. I could ask Wes a question, and I could hit the button, and he knows it.
Oh, he knows it.
So what it allows me to do is to have just a little sense. Like he has a degree.
I'm intimidated.
It's a posturing move.
It's
like a good debater would start off by asking
It's like you put 6 dogs out in the field. They're going to position themselves for the lead dog, and you just asserted yourself as the lead dog in the man cave.
Do you remember when Trump walked out to debate there, and Ben Carson was there, and Ben Carson was who I was going to vote for. Ben's out there, Trump's out there, and Jeb Bush is there, and they're greeting, they're doing their pleasantries, and Ben asks a question, and Trump looks over at him and says, "Ben, thank you for waking up. Appreciate that. That's great. Good to hear from you." And like the way he did it, you could tell Ben was like, "Ooh." That's what I was trying to do by mute him, Z.
There you go. Well, it was effective.
Get them all right. Yeah,
it was effective.
Okay,
very effective. Well, I was going to vote for him, and now I'm probably going to vote for you.
See, I had to compensate. I don't have a degree. I'm not a lawyer. He is, and all these questions on today's show are legal questions.
Ooh.
So they're all for Wes.
All for Wes.
So here we go.
Okay.
Question number 1.
Yes.
Wes Carter. Do I need a business license? The Thriver writes, do I need a business license?
Generally, no. Let us give our general disclaimer here.
Yeah.
If you're listening, please find your own competent attorney and get actual legal advice. A radio show is not a substitute for a good attorney.
Is LegalZoom substitute for a good attorney?
No, they're not attorneys at all.
LegalZoom is not a substitute?
No, and neither is your uncle. And just because you listen to the radio show doesn't mean you're my client, just so we're all clear on that. So,
wow, my good man. Talk about passive-aggressive.
Yeah,
I think you should have muted him on that
I'll tell you what.
That's a mute.
Billy.
No, but in all seriousness, you don't need a business license just to open a general business in most states. It varies state, city, county. I mean, they all can have a finger in licensing, but they do license specific occupations. So it depends on what kind of business you're going to operate.
Let's get very polarized.
Okay.
Z, let's get into some hyperbole.
So
let's say you're out in California. The laws in California recently, tell me if I'm incorrect.
Okay.
Talk to me about the paid time off rulings that are coming down from the powers that be in California.
Yeah, so many states are instituting laws where you require paid family leave for your employees. There's been discussions of this at the federal level too. I think this is one of Ivanka Trump's kind of programs she's touting. But at the state level now,
how would that work roughly? Like if I'm a plumber, I'm in California.
Yeah.
I have 4 employees total.
Yeah.
Myself, my wife, my son, and a dude. 4 of us. And dude says, here's the deal. I have some personal family stuff going on. I know there's a lot of toilets that need to be cleaned, but I need to go home because I've got a personal problem with my toilet. And I also am feeling emotionally blocked, clogged, and I'm going to be out for a couple days. Who pays for him?
The employee pays. I mean, the employer will pay for it in most instances.
For how long?
Well, it depends on the state. Federal level right now, if you have over a certain number of employees, there's something called the Family Medical Leave Act, which they get up to 12 weeks unpaid.
How many employees?
50.
Up to 50.
If you have 50 or more employees, then you're subject to something called the Family Medical Leave Act, which is a federal law that would apply.
After 50?
Yes. But states are now instituting paid, not unpaid family leave, but paid family leave.
Paid?
So if I have a baby, I can take paternal leave, or a new mother, or we adopt a baby, or I have a serious illness, different qualifying events where I can take paid leave.
How can the businesses afford to pay for that paid leave?
Well, it depends on some states are trying to do some sort of insurance to cover that. Some have looked into a risk pool, but eventually the employer pays for it. I mean, even if it's through an insurance program, somebody's got to pay an insurance premium.
So here we go. Here's the polarity. That's the rule. You're just the messenger.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
Yes.
See, what are your thoughts on this? Is this a great way to stimulate the economy?
No, it's not.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Does it apply if you get a new puppy? Can you? How much time are we talking about? Like, what are the extremes that you've heard? Like, I'm sure California's probably the most time.
California.
I think with California, they've actually, again, I'm not certain on this, but
Sure.
I think it's a shorter than the federal leave. I think we're talking about a 6-week time frame, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the paid leaves are on a shorter time frame, and then many of them extend it. You can take even longer, but then it's unpaid after the paid period.
Yeah, I think some of that's just being a good employer. I mean, I do that with mine. Someone has a baby, I pay them for 6 weeks to stay home and take care of that baby. And
You would?
then come back to work. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do that. I do that now anyway. 6 weeks is kind of the number.
Really?
Right, so this is kind of a state system where the state does some sort of governmental insurance, almost like you would mandate workers' comp insurance. Everybody pays into it, and then it's supposed to help offset the cost to the small employers. But again, we all know eventually the cost gets borne by someone.
Yeah, I don't like that component of it. Because
don't like
now
that
all of a
part
sudden-
of it?
No, now all of a sudden we have
Why?
to hire the people to manage it.
Oh, come
And so
on.
the money's not going where. I mean,
But we all need more red tape.
Guys,
we all need more
listen,
red tape.
listen, this is something you guys, one of these days, you guys are going to accept the business coaching advice that I'm going to give you on this subject. Because I
Okay.
know, here's the deal. Government never wastes money. That's tip number one. I'll tell you, that's tip number one right there. Now tip number eight is
Probably my best tip is tip number 8. Always keep bags of your own poop. Collect it throughout your stay and just have it ready.
no tip
Just have
number
it ready.
No, tip number 9 is because government never wastes money, we should give them more control.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because they do such a good job with the money they have. Let's give them more. Okay, so the root question here is, do I need a business license? That's a state-to-state thing.
Or city to, it can vary to city as well. So if you're out in the rural area where there's not a municipality, it's less likely you go into a large metropolitan city and they license more and more things. You hear those stories about a kid getting their Rose stand shut down, or
Shut down the Rose stand. That's the
lemonade
problem with America
stand
today.
shut down because they don't have a business license for that. Or you see these green people doing the all natural cow milk, and then they get shut down because they don't have the proper business licenses. And it's
I went to Nebraska. I was asked to speak in Nebraska.
Yeah.
We're going back about 10 years ago. The governor of Nebraska at the time, whose name I shall not remember right now, it'll come to me hopefully, he asked me to speak at the Cattlemen's Association thing. The governor of Nebraska's there. And there was federal regulations being discussed that were banning dust that is created by the trucks, the dust.
Wow. Okay.
And they were also banning your child being able to work with your dad, like the child working with you on the farm. And almost all those farms are supported by the kids working with the dad. And so it's a murky place out there. I would just say if you're a doctor, a dentist, Wes, a professional, if you're a professional, you gotta, even if you're a professional, if you're on the verge of starting a company, isn't it wise to reach out to an attorney and to look at that specific niche in that specific state and look and say, do I need a business license?
Attorney, or even if you're going to do it yourself, which we always suggest competent legal counsel. But if you're just doing some research, call your city or call your county. And a lot of times there's someone there that can help you talk to you about required permits and business licenses for the type of business that you want to operate.
Okay, now the next question is, and by the way, Josh with Living Water Irrigation is a show sponsor. He's here on the show to ask some great questions, because when you're a show sponsor, when you put money where our mouth is, you get to have a mic.
Yeah, we give you a mic.
We give you a mic. And when you are an attorney who I pay a lot of money to, you also get a mic.
Yes.
So that's how that works. So here we go. So next question is, can I use my personal assets for my business? As an example, this microphone here,
Yes.
and this shoe. Have you
Yes.
seen my shoe in the microphone?
I have not seen your kicks.
Okay. This shoe was given to me by Colton Dixon, a client I've been working with.
Like a
Top
zebra.
40 Christian music artist, now signed to Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
Has the same agent as Jason Mraz now, and Ed Sheeran, working on an awesome album. He said, "Thank you, man, for helping me. Here's a shoe." And then he sent me another pair. He sent me another shoes. 2 shoes. The shoes. These are the Kanye, the Yeezys.
you have 2 feet?
The Zebra edition. Unbelievable. Then he sent me a Slate mic. Now, this mic here is the hot industry standard mic right now. This mic, so nice. It picks up any noise, though, so I don't use it a lot for the show because it picks up all ambiance. It's an unbelievable mic.
Looks fancy.
It's a personal gift, though. can I use it for my professional business?
You can, but you need to be very careful about it. So when you say my personal assets,
I never let my face touch the mic.
Right. So let's talk about your cash. Don't just stick your personal cash into the business without a paper trail.
Got it.
I mean, part of the reason we have a business is we want to keep our personal stuff separate from our business stuff. So if you're going to put money in because businesses run out of money, need to pay bills, you need to record it as a capital contribution or some sort of, fancy way of describing putting money into a business, and have a paper trail, because again, we want to avoid the argument later on that the business is just an alter ego of you personally and that the court should just ignore the business and make you personally liable. So you want to have a paper trail and find a formal way to put that in. With assets, equipment, furniture, property, I still would suggest not intermingling them any more than absolutely necessary. I don't think anyone's going to lose a court battle over your fancy microphone, but at the same time, you want to have a paper trail where there's an arm's length transaction. Look, Clay, the individual, is going to lease all this wonderful AV equipment to Clay's business.
Henceforth.
And we have a contract there that shows a separation between you, the individual, and you, the business.
Now, some of the listeners out there know that my wife handles the accounting and legal aspects of our businesses, so she works with you on a daily basis.
Yes.
Josh, who in your business helps you with the legal and accounting aspects of living water irrigation?
So the accounting aspects, my wife. The legal aspects, nobody.
Oh, well, you guys should meet each. I did not know that was not like a baited question there. I did not know that. So anyway, now that you guys have met each other.
So fortunately, seeing that we're standing next to each other, and you pay him a lot of money.
I do.
I kind of get the residual osmosis effect of standing here.
He's the best. So I want to ask you, as you grow living water irrigation,
Yes, sir.
what legal questions do you have that you'd like to ask Mr. West on today's show? Because you, my friend, are a real business owner. You've really grown your company quite a bit recently. What questions do you have for Wesley Carter? Wesley Carter. Ooh,
Keep me on my
Wesley Carter.
toes. Keep me on my toes.
Okay, the biggest, most pressing that we have at this very moment.
Yep.
So we are looking at like a golden handcuffs thing for a key manager.
Okay.
How or what is the proper pronoun there? What's the best method by which to give him some equity?
Can I go
of the
to
company?
Z and then to Wes?
Yeah.
So let's go with Z for the strategy and then Wes for the legal. Can we do that? Is that cool? So the question is, Z, you got a top manager, somebody you want to keep on your team for a decade.
Yes.
And you want to do a win-win. It's where you kind of lock them into a deal where they're going to make a lot of money if they stay with you, if they stay loyal, right? You want to keep them loyal so they don't spoil. Strategy. Talk to me about it.
Well, if they're that kind of a quality person and you're thinking about sharing some equity with them, is that what you're thinking, Josh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what you want to do is you want to do it over time. And that's way it doesn't vest or they don't actually receive it until a certain amount of time. And if they leave before that amount of time, then the vesting's done. They don't get anything.
So everything I've seen so far, Dr. Z, just good old Google, thank you, Google, is they meet certain benchmark requirements that we lay out on a list of expectations. Then once they reach that, then they take over the ownership aspect. Is that correct?
That's one formula. Another one you could do just straight time. A lot of times if they're not in charge of everything, it's sometimes the fact they didn't hit a number that you set out there isn't their fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
sir.
So sometimes it's like, hey, you already say, listen, you recognize this person as a key person. You want to keep them around for a long time. So then you give them that little carrot out there. And I always use time. In 5 years, you'll be vested and you can earn a percentage of the company each year round. And then 5 years they vest and you actually receive that. Now it's yours to do with as you want. You can sell it. You can keep it. You're now one of your hats you wear as a business owner. And this is a partner, but he'll never own the majority of it. And you can also put in there too that if he gets fired from his job after that, then they can do a business evaluation. You have the first right to buy that 5% back if you'd like. I mean, nobody wants to have a partner that doesn't want to be a partner with them, right?
Right.
So there's several different things. Wes, you want to pile on?
I think that's a perfect segue because one of my biggest problems with golden handcuffs is the divorce aspect.
Yes.
And so I always try to steer clients away from giving away equity because equity sounds good to most people. They're like, ooh, I want to own some business. But the reality is they're never going to have a controlling interest.
Correct.
So they're going to be a silent equity owner. What they really want is the money. And so
Make it the money.
if we
Make it the
if we can figure out a way to financially reward them in a similar fashion without giving away equity and then having to worry about how we get our ownership back if we have a bad separation, I prefer that. And you can do that through very similar structures with either a bonus structure or something called a phantom stock plan, where they basically get imaginary equity, but then they get paid the value of how much that would have gone up. So if I give you 100 shares today, they're worth $100. If we give you 100 phantom shares, 2 years they're worth $200. You've made $100 per share. You just never actually own any shares. Now that gets into a more regulated, kind of deferred compensation, and you get into all these other technical areas. But really, what we're talking about for the most part, unless someone is really stuck on it being, having ownership interest, is they want to be financially rewarded. And so before you go down the equity road, I would pursue some sort of bonus structure that you could use.
So like a profit.
Excellent point, Wes. Because I have, for years, I had young doctors come and join my practice that I always be like, hey, what can I be an owner? And I go, no, you can't. One, we could have 100 people evaluate the business, and we're going to have 100 different valuations of the business. So what's the price that you're buying into it? I'm going to pay you. There's a lot of places out there where you can go invest your money. Walmart, Amazon, Google, Apple. You can invest your money and own a piece of those businesses, right? And it'd be the same thing as here. You're never going to have a controlling interest. I'd always be able to buy you out. It'd be a buy-sell deal. So it's really about how much money I can pay you and then what you do with that money. But the idea that you never own a piece of this, don't let that be a hindrance to coming to work for me, because you're never going to have a controlling interest in it anyway. I'll always have a controlling interest in it, even if you owned a few shares here or a few shares there. I mean, it's kind of like you buy some Walmart stock. You're not going to show up at a shareholders meeting and go, hey,
fire the CEO.
Yeah, I'm in charge now. I own 12 shares, It's not going to happen. So you kind of get that through their head, and so many people come out and think ownership is the end-all to end-all.
Right.
But ownership without any control, without any voice, is really not ownership at all. It's really just a profit-sharing mechanism, and I love the phantom shares options. Did you have to wear the white half mask when you do that? Like they did
a black robe.
A black robe, Kid the Opera.
Do you have to be tenor or soprano for that?
Ooh, that's a good question, Josh.
Yeah.
I want to give the listeners an example of a golden handcuffs that worked out very well for all the parties involved. David Robinson, who was a player for the Spurs for years.
Yes.
A lot of people who are familiar with the NBA might know this story, and for those of you who aren't, I think you'll find this to be fascinating. David, when he went to college, was like 6'3", 6'4", and he grew to be 7 feet tall. He grew. I mean, no one grows that much in college. So he gets out of the military academy, out of the Naval Academy, and he is 7'1". Now the rules are in the Navy, you have to serve for the active duty for a year after you get out. You have to, as part of the Naval Academy agreement. So David gets drafted number 1 in the NBA draft. He's a top draft pick, but he can't play.
Yeah.
So he sits out for a year, and he can't play. The military realizes this is going to be a PR machine. Let's go ahead and let the guy out. He's like, no, I want to serve a year. But long story short, he's drafted by the Spurs. He can't play there. The Spurs bring him on the organization a year after being drafted, and he shows up at the Alamo Dome. Now, the Alamo Dome, they've since moved to a different arena, but the Alamo Dome was massive. Do you guys remember watching games in the Alamo Dome?
Oh, yes.
Like 70,000 people or some crazy number, 60,000 people. And that thing was empty. I mean, it was like you could hear individual boos from individual people. It was like a one-on-one interaction. If you had seats on the third row, it was like you're on the first row. The players could hear you. It was serious. They had record low attendance. So the Spurs pulled him aside and said, David, here's the deal. And he talks about this on our Thrive Time show. If you go to our online school, thrivetimeshow.com, as hundreds and hundreds of people do this all the time, it's discovering it for the first time. It's just $19 a month. You can watch these videos.
It's crazy.
And David explains, he says, they told him, we need you to drive around San Antonio in a vehicle and introduce yourself to business owners. So you're going to show up. Hi, I'm David Robinson. This would be like Russell Westbrook going to Tulsa businesses, showing up saying, hi, I'm Russell Westbrook, and I would like to invite you out to a game. And here are your free tickets. So this is what David would do in exchange for, as he said, some sort of golden handcuffs in the future, the ability to buy ownership of the team after he retires.
Hey, let me maybe clarify something here, too, when we're trying to explain this to employees. Golden handcuffs are really for the employer's benefit. A golden handcuff means I'm going to financially incentivize you not to leave. because the vesting schedule, if you leave before the 5-year period, you get nada.
Nada.
So there's also a golden parachute, which means that benefits the employee. If you kick me out of here, I'm leaving with a sweet deal. Okay? So the golden handcuffs, when an employee comes to you asking for that, it's like me coming to you and asking you to punch me in the face. Okay? It's because they're designed to keep you there. And taking it back, I don't know if the football current events here, I saw a interview with Mike Tomlin, I think it was yesterday, asking about Antonio Brown. Everybody's wanting to know Antonio Brown's gone now. And he said, I can't do this with hostages. Okay? Because he didn't want to be here. So if your golden handcuffs work, you've got a hostage employee that may not be really wanting to be there in the first place, that you're keeping there because they can't afford or don't want to turn down the money if they stay there for another few years. So you have to put all this into the big picture too, that it's a lot of moving parts on both sides, what the cost benefits are.
Well, David Robinson was said if you stick with the Spurs and you help promote the team and you get that attendance up, we're going to let you buy in later. So in 2004, he bought 1.8% of the Spurs, 1.88% of the Spurs for $5 million. Okay, which at the time the team was worth $283 million. So he bought, think about that. So he bought $5 million of it. Now the company, the value of the Spurs has gone up now dramatically. And so now today, his investment, because the ownership of the team, the value of the team now is $1.6 billion. So now that investment of $5.65 million or $5 million has increased 5.65 times. So he now has an investment that's worth $28.25 million. Now, that was a pretty good deal for David Robinson.
Not bad.
And what happens is there are people, and I just want to really get to the core of this issue. There are people out there called entrepreneurs. There are wantrepreneurs, and there are intrapreneurs, as I see it. An entrepreneur is somebody who really went out there and solved the problem, bet the farm, did it, I won, boom, yes. That's a crazy person. That's me. Okay? A wantrepreneur says, I want it, Z. I want to do it. I want it, but not this year. And they do that for their whole life. That person's dangerous to me. A wantrepreneur, I don't want them in my organization because that's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Z, you know that person.
Oh yeah,
it makes me crazy. Now the favorite person I like is the intrapreneur. They say I'm gonna be creative. I'm gonna solve problems, but I like the security of being here, and I want to be a part of this team long term. And so you as an employer want to make a win-win where you say you sticking around being loyal, because loyalty, man, that's powerful. You can build something with loyalty. You're saying I want to make a win-win for you over time. But if you have someone on your team who's watching your house get bigger and bigger, and you're selling more and more stuff, and you're not giving them any type of compensation package, they might not say something, but you are creating a problem.
Well, and one of the other things that I did, Josh, that's kind of fun, and that is that when I had a plus employee and they were really working well and things were going great, and I started a new business, I would then pull a few of them aside and say, listen, if you want to get on the ground floor of this new business, there's no guarantees.
We're auto shipping soap.
We're auto shipping soap.
Genius.
We're trying to find dirty people and ship them soap.
Yes.
And say the startup cost is going to be $100,000 just for round numbers.
Yep.
And I'll let you buy in up to 10% or 15%. If you want to take $10,000 or $15,000 of your money and put it with mine and whoever else wants to play in this arena, then we can rock on with this.
Rock out.
And I've had several of my doctors do this over the years, and they actually are making more money on the investments they've made with me in the other businesses than they are their salary being an optometrist for me. And I pay them very well. So, it's another thing, too, as you grow, that's a little carrot that I kind of hang out in front of people. I go, listen, I'll know the cost of that startup business because the cost is a cost, right? And then we may have to do a capital call. We may have to put some more money in. We may not. And here's the plan. Here's what's going to happen. Here's going to run it. Here's the view. And so, but it's also interesting too because one of my businesses, the guy that ran it was a brother of mine. True story. And so he was around buying lunches for a lot of doctors. And after a while, it kicked into where now he owns 10% of the business.
Got it.
Okay. Vested, did his time, did his hard work, took a little bit of a reduced salary, knowing that was going to be on the back end because we're a startup, and so we didn't want to bleed the company. And so then all of a sudden he goes, well, man, that's, I tell you what, some high-end restaurant that said, "But they're not going to be happy with this." And I go, "Oh, really? Why?" And he goes, "Well, I used to go by and spend $100 on lunch to take to Dr. So-and-so's office. Now I'm just spending $50 and ordering pizzas because 10 of that dollars is now mine." And so now I'm only having to give up $5. I want to say, "You little rascal, it's so easy to spend your money. It's so easy for your employees to spend your money, Josh, And there is something magical about them all of a sudden getting on the hook with you.
That's a valid point.
In the profit sharing of the
now,
equation.
I get this question asked a lot at conferences. People want a short answer. It's a bigger question. They want a short answer. And I always tell them, this is my answer to this question. They say, this is the question. The question is, how do I ensure legal compliance? That's the question. In some way, shape, or form. How do I know that I'm legally in the right? How do I ensure legal compliance? Well, this is what I would say, and I want Wes to get your feedback on this. I would say you need to go to an attorney who knows what the heck they're talking about, and they're going to go through a checklist, is usually what I've seen. People like Wes will go through and go, do you have workman's comp? Do you have your documents filed? Are you actually an LLC? Do you have your operating agreement? Do you have your letters, your dissolution agreement? Do you have, and you have like a checklist of, 50 things you need to make sure you're looking at. Are you licensing your things properly? Are you trademarking? Can you use your name? There's just so many things you need to look for. And I think doing a legal audit for every listener out there is what I would recommend. So a two-part question for you.
Yes.
If someone did want to do a legal audit, let's say they've never met with an attorney and they have no freaking clue. I mean, how crazy is it, Z, when someone finds out they can't use the name of their company? That just happened to a guy in Houston this week.
The worst.
A person, literally, a huge company called him and said, "Hey, you're using my name. Stop." I mean, that's not good. So how much would a legal audit cost to sit down with you and a member of your team at Winters and King and to really figure out, are we in the right here?
Well, we can usually keep it pretty cost effective because a lot of that we can discuss. So we can sit down for a couple hours and discuss it, identify potential issues, and then how much it costs to fix the issues depends on how bad the issues are. But, I mean, just a couple hours of time, you can get through a lot of information and dig up potential issues or say, okay, that sounds good. Looks like you're in good shape here and here, but you need to focus on this. Part two to that, I would say, no matter how good of an attorney you find, attorneys are reactive a lot of times. The nature of the business is you come to me with a problem, I will solve your problem. But I don't know what I don't know. And so to the entrepreneur, to the listener, part of this is going to be educating yourself to some degree. Not get a law degree. What I tell my clients or my students when I teach is that you want to know enough to know when to ask your attorney. That's your goal. Not to know the answer, but to know enough when to ask the question, to identify the red flags. Otherwise, if your attorney never knows the issue, they can't fix it for you. If your accountant doesn't know the issue, they can't fix it for you. So you have to educate yourself to some degree, just so you enough where you can identify, hey, maybe we should ask somebody about this here.
Now, this is my next part here. How dangerous is it to not ever ask an attorney, look it up, ever do the research into whether you can use your name or your logo or your because I think most people never check with an attorney until they get in trouble. How your mind, how dangerous is it to operate without having at least checked with an attorney about whether you can use that name or not?
Well, if we have a trademark infringement claim, so that's what it would be. Hey, I own the trademark rights. That means I use the exclusive rights. I have exclusive rights to use that name in connection with selling these goods and services. The remedy, the penalty for that is I get to disgorge you of all of your profits, which means all the money that you've made from that name, you now get to pay me. Plus, I'm going to be able to get my actual damages of what you've cost me. Plus, maybe I'm going to make you pay my attorney's fees. And on top of all that, you're going to have to completely rebrand your entire organization. New domain name, new literature, new signs. And I've gone through this, and it's easily, even for a small business, just thinking about signs, T-shirts, car wraps. I mean, it could be a couple $100,000 easy.
Yeah.
But without even talking about legal fees and what you're going to pay the other party.
Okay, now I have two final questions I want to ask, and Z, I want you to feel free to go off if you need to. Okay, I want you to go off. I know your stance on this.
I'm ready to go.
This is what I hear a lot, and I know there's some accountants right now who already are ready to fight me. I can just sense it. Here it comes. I met with a client the other day.
Yeah.
Someone I know fairly well. I won't mention what city they're in. They're not in Tulsa, and they had an accountant who's not based in Tulsa. So it's nobody we know directly. But this is what their accountant, their advice their accountant gave them. They have a business that does about $800,000 a year of gross revenue.
Okay.
And we know that that profit-wise, they do about 25% profit. It's like 23%, okay? So we're talking...
A couple $100,000.
Yeah. Their accountant said, and you tell me if... I just want to get your thoughts. Their accountant said, just take a salary of $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month, and then just take distributions for the other, $180,000, and then run a lot of expenses through the business. That way you don't have to pay more than your fair share. Now, again, $800,000 of revenue on a profit of about $250,000 after paying out all the employees, and the advice from the accountant, who, by the way, will not have to deal with the accountants, by the way, don't go to jail, don't have to pay back taxes. A lot of times accountants can go, well, I didn't tell you that. So, Z, talk to me about this idea of taking a ridiculously low salary and then trying to avoid all taxation, and give us the balance on what kind of taxation you believe somebody who's how they should pay themselves if they do make $200,000 a year of profit. How should someone pay themselves in your mind?
Well, there's two different things. An excellent point. Number one, they should take part of it as a W-2 salary. They should take part of it as distributions. Okay.
How much in your mind?
Well,
$200,000.
it depends on the industry. It depends on the industry standard. It depends on what's arguable to an IRS agent.
What's fair and reasonable?
What's fair and reasonable?
Reasonable compensation. Yeah.
Reasonable compensation for what they are doing.
If $2,000 a month is $2,000 a month reasonable?
It depends. It could be a passive owner. They could be doing nothing.
Let's say in this case, it is. I'm seeing up all the scenarios because I just want to get your take on this. In this case, this particular situation, this person works about 10 hours a week and is the manager of the thing. They hire all the employees, hold them accountable. 10 hours a week. They're not in the store in the business 50 hours a week or 40.
Well, if they're in 10 hours a week, let's do the math on it. If they were in 40 hours a week, that'd be 4 times the money. That would be 4 times 2,000, be 8,000 a month. Okay, 8 times 12 is what? 100 and
8 times 12, 96, I think.
Yeah, $96,000.
It's about $50 an hour.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that that's too far off.
Is it too far off?
I don't know that it is.
It may not be. I mean, again, now if you're
and you can argue it that way,
right? If you're an MD, a brain surgeon, that's too low. If you're a roofer, that may be reasonable. Depends on your industry.
Yeah, and you're not driving a nail, and you're just kind of, like you said, working 10 hours a week.
So you're saying, let me just make sure I'm getting this, you would look at what you would normally spend to pay someone to do that job.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what you should be paid.
And there's your arguable position. So now then, you can go a little bit lower than that if you want to be more aggressive. You can go a little bit higher than that if you want to be a little safer. But I think that's the threshold that an IRS agent would look at. And now also, too, with some of the new tax changes with Donald Trump, is that there is, like I was taking, from some of my businesses, I was taking W-2 out of a lot of them.
Yeah.
But now I've pared that down some and taken it more as a distribution because of the new tax codes. So I don't think that's unreasonable.
This is the thing that makes me crazy. This is what part is the accountants who advise these people. I see it all the time. Is they say, well, I don't want to tell you what to do, and everyone kind of dances around that, but no one will give this guy direct advice. So I'm saying you can't give him tax advice because you're not an accountant. You can't give him tax advice because you don't know the situation. But somebody's got to give these people advice. And what I see on my end, I see it 3 years later, and they go, there was a guy in Wisconsin I just talked to who's literally paying back like 4 years of taxes because he was taking a salary of like $1,500 a month and taking the whole thing as distributions.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm currently in a bind because I'm paying hundreds of thousands back. And I'm like, are you being 100% honest with me? You definitely did pay taxes on you pay. And he says, but they said because this is my only job, my only income source, it wasn't reasonable for me to be paying $1,500 a month to myself to manage this operation. And now I'm paying it back. And so what advice do you have? And I'm going, I'm not an accountant, but I just wish the accountants could come out and it would be like a hard, what I mean? I think people want to do the right thing.
Yeah, and you go to the right accountants, CPAs, and there is a standard that they are held accountable for, aren't they, Wes? I mean, there is. If they're stamping, if they're filing your income
well, that's
tax
why,
return.
and that's why. I mean, you see this with attorneys sometimes too. They don't want to give you a definitive answer. They say, well,
basically,
probably it's this. It could be this, because if they're wrong, they don't want an email or a letter coming back to them for a malpractice claim saying you were wrong, you caused me damage.
Right.
And it's important to know too. This answer changes depending on what kind of entity you have. A single member LLC, a multiple member LLC, an S corp, a C corp. those all have different rules on how you pay yourself. So, it is important to find a good CPA, and if they're being squirrely with you, go find a new one.
Yeah.
There's lots of CPAs out there.
Lots of CPAs.
And some of them will be willing to give you a straight answer.
Okay.
They could call one of our sponsors, Paul Hoods.
They should give them a call. HoodCPAs.com. HoodCPAs.com. Now,
Yeah, great guy.
here is my next and final question from the Thrive Nation. This one hits home. This is a tough one here. Okay, here we go. There's a member of the Thrive Nation who about a year ago came to a conference, met them, I shook their hand, and this person builds big homes. That's all. I'll just leave it there. They build big homes. And they asked me, they said, Clay, could you review the contract that my attorney gave me just to see your thoughts on it? So I'm not an attorney. I'd love to look at it, see.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and this is what I do. I'm probably a bad guy. But I got out my pen.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
I got out my
Definitely.
pen. I queued up some music just so the listeners can kind of reenact what I did here. I got out this is how I read documents, and everyone has their own flow, their own way. I'm just telling you this is literally how I did it, how I would do it. I would keep the Last Samurai soundtrack. Let me get it going. And then I'm going to sit there and read this thing. Because I can't read in quiet. I can't read at the office. I got to sit down. And I'm reading. And I read. I come out, and I after reading, I go, no, surely not. So I take out my pen, and I circle, and I continue. And I read, and I circle, and I go through. And there are grammatical errors everywhere. And it's crazy. Like the camel casing is wrong. So it's like, if you were talking about a movie, and the movie was like The Phantom of the Opera, the's capitalized, P's capitalized, The Phantom of not capitalized, the opera is, these not capitalized, O is. They didn't the capitalization was wonky everywhere. That's what caught my eye right away.
Yeah.
And then the date, like the year was wrong. The year was wrong, like vastly wrong. Like not in the last year or two. It's like template. And then there's like and ors, but like the and/or, they're on top of each other without spacing. And that kind of alerted me to like, we might have some problems here. So then as I really dove into it, I'm not kidding, guys. It was probably, and Andrew's seen me do this before in our meetings, like 50 errors all in red pen. So I gave it back to the client, scanned it to him, sent it to him, and I said, I just talked to him about all of the grammatical errors and then also the substantive errors. Like the law, I worry about the letter of the law, but the spirit of it seems to be jacked up too.
Yeah.
If you have a contract that you get from your attorney that is filled with grammatical errors, the question is, should you be worried?
You definitely be worried. One, I will admit from my profession, we are susceptible to using templates and copy and paste. And it's a common error you see from an attorney's office. And it's a sign that the attorneys rushed through it, to be honest with you. I know when it's happened to me on occasion, it's because I didn't take the time to proofread. And if they can't take the time to proofread a document that's important to you, then they're too busy or they're lazy.
And you've told me a lot. This is what Wes does to me. Wes goes, I will get that document to you. Today's Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it to you in 14 days from now because I want to proof it, and I want to, and I go, that's great. I've had attorneys in the past who are like, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, 30 minutes, I'll have it to
30
you.
minutes, I'll get it to you. And so, does that? I mean, because again, is it possible to actually graduate from law school and not know how to write a contract? Is that possible?
There's good and bad attorneys, just like there's good and bad every
Do
other
they teach you how to write a contract in law school?
No, I mean you learn theory in law school.
Theorem.
I'm still learning writing, after practicing for a decade, picking up tips here and there that nobody teaches you unless you come from an English background. So that's one thing. But the other important thing is grammatical errors matter. The addition or deletion of a single letter can matter. I mean, I've seen multi-million-dollar lawsuits turn on one word.
Yeah.
And so those matter.
An A instead of an at.
Right.
Now, Wes, I got a legal question for you to wrap up the show today.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is, let's say, hypothetically, you hire an attorney, and through a series of not getting anything done,
Yeah.
you change attorneys. I know you never fire an attorney. I've learned you substitute attorneys. So you substitute the attorney, and there in the subsequent time frame after that, you get a bill in the mail from the first attorney, right? And the bill has it's a big bill. Or
These are all theoretical circumstances. These are all
it's bigger
theoretical
than you
ideas.
think it probably should be because of the lack of stuff that got done. And on this is broken down all these, which I almost think are like silly things. reviewed the files. Reviewed.
And this has only happened to me, Z, about 5 times.
Right. What is as
Not for me, just to be clear.
No, not for Wes.
not for you. But what is my legal recourse in that? I mean, it seems like all the hammers are in your hand
Well, there are, and
because you guys made the rules.
well, yeah, and that's exactly where I would point someone is we're bound. Each state has a bar association, and that maintains a set of professional ethical codes that we have to follow. And your recourse is to file a bar complaint if they're not going to handle your concerns, because we are bound in the way we bill. It has to be reasonable and proper. Okay, so if I'm billing you excessively or unfairly or things that
Or without your knowledge.
you didn't get the work done, there was no quid pro quo there, then that's where bar complaints happen. And to attorneys out there, that's why you should make good on those. Do the right thing.
There is a young lady who I know very well who's recently was going through a divorce, and she called this divorce attorney to get his feedback on how to proceed. Not to engage, but to proceed. To see. So she met him for a consultation, and she talked for about an hour. She said he was really generous with his time. Like, this is a single woman who's divorced with a kid. I guess the dude flaked out, disappeared. And so she's like, he was very generous. And I remember just saying at the office, I'm like, how generous? She goes, he was like there for probably closer to 2 hours. I'm like, okay. You get a bill? She said, no, it's a first half-hour consultation. And I said, uh-oh. And this person got a pretty big bill. Now, I can say this, honest to God, Wes always tells me, he says, if I were to do this, I want to be clear, this is what I'm going to charge.
Yeah.
And he always has that discussion. He says, do I have permission to move forward? He does that all the time.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's what it should be.
But I have yet to deal with an attorney except for you and Larry Taylor, who operates that way. So Larry Taylor and you are the only 2 attorneys I've dealt with that do that. The other ones are like, oh, well, tell me more about this. And they'll actually call. I've had one guy call me to check in and then bill me, and it's like a quarter of an hour.
And, and the other thing we don't bill for legal research, copying, postage. You see itemized legal bills.
It's crazy.
I bill for my time, and part of that baked in is my
for things that
postage.
get done. Bill me for things that get done, not the idea that you're sitting back
Postage.
thinking about it every day in the shower, the billing me,
And the other move I love is when an attorney will send you that final bill, and then let's say I'm the new attorney. I say, hey, John Doe Esquire, Z's hired me to take over this case. Could you kindly forward me the file? Oh, as soon as he pays his bill, I'll give you all his records.
Yeah.
And
that's just so tacky.
it's just
It's so tacky.
it comes back to doing business the right way.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, you look at the stuff and you go, that can't be the case, because if you spent that much time researching and reviewing and doing all this, the ball would have at least gotten off the goal line down the field a little bit.
Wes, here's my little bonus sneak. My bonus sneak. I want us to make sure this show always stays relevant. Okay. Fox News, CNN. A lot of our listeners go there occasionally. They listen to AM radio. They get it. Trumptastic. The Russians. What's your legal take on what's going on? Trumptastic. The Russians. Was he involved? Was he not involved? What's going on? Because we're business people. We don't get into this stuff. Just give us enough surface level epidermis knowledge so that we can see. We want to stay topically relevant.
So it's interesting because now we have a 2-year investigation. Mm-hmm. We have an attorney.
How much that cost us?
Yeah, we have an attorney general that has summarized a 2-year investigation of 4 pages and said, "Here you go. This is good enough for what you need to know." And we have both sides, to some degree, unhappy.
Which means it's probably a pretty good result,
right? Which that's usually a good compromise. The Democrats are still going to push for full disclosure of the entire report. I think the Republicans are probably going to push back against that to some degree. I think there's going to be a lot of confidential, top secret, sources and methods kinds of information in the report that will have to be redacted. I doubt we ever see the full report, but the issue will not go away. They have now pivoted. When I say they, the Democrats have pivoted from, okay, well, there's no collusion, but we're going to go after obstruction now, and we'll keep pursuing investigations on obstruction. So I think it's a very interesting. The other recent turn of events, which is interesting from a legal standpoint as an attorney, is Michael, I can never say his last name right, Avenatti has now been
Illuminati
criminally indicted for making a demand on Nike. He said, hey, you're about to have your earnings call, and I've got this guy that knows some stuff allegedly about some wrongdoing paying athletes. Pay me about $30 million or I'm going to crash your stock price.
And this is the same Magic Mike who did what?
This was the same gentleman that represented Stormy Daniels.
The incredible actress, right? It's incredible.
The
Such
adult,
feature
the adult
films
film
as.
star. I don't know.
Okay,
I was waiting for you to like reel off like 5 minutes.
No, I don't. So if you're out there, that's a hot topic right now.
Well, it is, and the fact that you can get criminally indicted for making a legal demand the wrong way, it crossed a line. The feds are say it crossed into extortion, and so it's an interesting.
That's all you guys do.
Right.
Come on.
It's interesting.
That's
Where's that line?
Where's
Where's
that
that
line? Where you guys draw it? Come on, attorneys. It's all about legal extortionism. I should have been an attorney. I can extort more money.
Z,
I want to start extorting money out of you. I'm gonna do it legally though.
Z, I tell you what, man. We have a great relationship with Wes Carter.
Oh, he's
because he's a great attorney. But we can't say on the show. We can't say he's the best in the world. No. We can't even say like you should use him. We could say his website factually is Winter's King.
Yes, we can't say that.
And we could go on the record and say he's an attorney. And
you could go on the record and say you use him and have been very happy with the results.
Can I say that, Wes?
You can, but that your results aren't indicative of what I might be able to do for someone else.
Yeah. All right. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom.